ready
The
to go?
broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to welcome those virtually and in person to the August 5th meeting of the North Carolina Local Government Commission. I'm State Treasurer Dale Falwell and Chair. In a minute, we'll go to our Pledge of Allegiance and have Secretary Marshall join us in leading. Secretary Marshall leading us in the salute to our North Carolina flag. Before we do so, Cindy, would you please call the roll to determine a quorum and give us a few housekeeping items?
Yes, thank you. This is Cindy Aiken, Assistant General Counsel. Start with Auditor Holmes.
Present.
Thank you. Participating virtually today, Secretary Marshall.
Here.
Here in person, Secretary Penny.
Here.
Let's see, virtual Secretary, Mr. Burns.
Here.
Virtually, Mr. Butler.
Here.
In person. Ms. Harvey is absent today. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Here.
Here in person. Mr. Philbeck.
Here.
Yep, he's virtual. And Treasurer Falwell in person. Just one absent. Okay, here I go with the normal housekeeping items. Our meeting proceedings today are being recorded and will be made available to the public pursuant to the Department of State Treasurer's reporting of public meetings policy. If everyone who is speaking today, please identify yourself when you are speaking. If you are participating virtually, please kindly mute yourself if you are not speaking at that time. We'll cross our fingers, hopefully no power or audio-visual connection problems, but as we've noted before, sometimes even if you don't realize it, the recording may still continue, so please just be cautious of that. If it appears that we've lost some connection, that there may still be recording going on. The agenda for today is posted on the website at www.nctreasurer.com at the Local Government Commission page. If we have any changes to the agenda, those will be announced during the meeting. We will take all votes by roll call, and without objection, the motions and seconds of the members will be considered as a yes vote unless you want to indicate otherwise during the roll call vote. A word again, just a reminder about the sensitivity of the microphones in the ceiling in this room, especially if you are under them. And speaking myself, I would try not to flip my papers too loudly because it really does come across on the recording and it's difficult to hear if you're listening virtually. And again, if you have any private conversations you want to have, please be welcome to step out into the lobby for those. It's amazing. I listen to the meetings how much we can hear on those microphones, so I will try to be cautious of that. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. If you all stand and join us for our Pledge of Allegiance and Secretary Marshall leading us to the North Carolina flags. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of North Carolina and pledge to the Old North State love, loyalty, and faith.
Okay, Marshall, maybe we can do that at the Council of State meeting then. Be great.
Is there a North Carolina flag in there? I guess there is.
Hope so. Members, we have a conflict of interest statement. Please take a moment to review the agenda that's before you. Anyone have an actual potential or appearance of a conflict of interest regarding matters that are coming before us?
Mr. Treasurer, I'd just like everybody to know that I have no relationship to the town of Burnsville.
We'll have to fact check that, sir. Thank you.
I have vacation there, but
Yeah.
not related.
Well, they have some great theater there, so that's in the summertime. So, thank you, Mr. Burns. Should a conflict arise, please let me, as the chair, know. Before I ask for approval of the meeting minutes.
Well, I guess I need to say, remember that I've already said I will not be voting on any of the appeals for non-compliance.
Noted. Thank you, Secretary. Okay. Should a conflict arise during our deliberations, please let me as the chair know. Before proceeding and asking for approval of meeting minutes, I want to recognize Representative Crutchfield, who's here today. Welcome. And we have two candidates running for treasurer of North Carolina, and Representative Harris and Mr. Briner. Both of them have been invited to this meeting, and they have scheduling conflicts, but whether it's this meeting, the Banking Commission tomorrow, the Supplemental Retirement Plan meeting, Local Government Commission, State Health Plan, Retirement Board, or any of the other boards I chair, I've taken an opportunity over the last 7 weeks to invite both those candidates to every meeting where I'm the chair. So I'm sure they'll be making an appearance sometime between now and November, but just wanted to say for the record that our doors open to them equally to find out what it really means to be the treasurer of North Carolina. So anyway. With that, I'll entertain a motion to approve meeting minutes of July 9th.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay, the minutes for July 9th, that's Hoffman Butler. Auditor Holmes just edged out. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Marshall.
Aye.
Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
And Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, members. And I'll now turn the meeting over to Debbie for a few moments. How many people are joining us virtually?
150.
So it's about 150 people joining us virtually. So hope you can take a moment just to listen to what Debbie's Secretary Tomasco is getting ready to say about the timing of the things that are on the agenda that I think you're most interested in. So maybe we can save all of you a little bit of time this afternoon.
Thank you, Treasurer. I just wanted to note again for units that are participating and listening for the discussion related to deliberation by the Commission on withholding of sales tax. We will first in our meeting be taking care of the debt matters as we typically do at the top of the agenda. As soon as that discussion is completed, we'll move on to the discussion of the appeals. For everyone who's connected, you're connected in listen-only mode. Should questions come up for your unit, you will be unmuted so you can answer questions of the Commission. And then once your unit's discussion or your unit has been discussed, you're welcome to drop off at that time. We will follow up with email and formal communications regarding any action the Commission does or doesn't take related to each of your units. So you will have that in writing following the meeting related to those actions taken. So just wanted to let everyone know that we know you're there. We'll be getting to those items immediately after the debt items, and just to hold tight for us, and we'll get there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our first order of business is to draw your attention to Attachment A, which is our OPEB report. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, our OPEB report and our GASB report signifies the balance sheet, the accounting balance sheet obligations of the applicants who are coming before us for unfunded health care and pension and LEO activities. So that report is in Exhibit A. Just wanted to call out the City of Sanford, which is about 10% funded, $45 million liability and $4 million in the bank. Our gold star goes to Charlotte, who took Winston-Salem's advice about 37 years ago, and they have $148 million in the bank toward their $362 million unfunded health care liabilities. So congratulations to Charlotte for looking at that. We still have some major entities, Cabarrus County, $40 million unfunded health care liability, $4 million in the bank, $12 million LEO liability, and $48 million total OPEB and LEO liability. To make sure we're clear about this, anytime you point a finger at someone else, there's three more pointing back at you. The biggest offender in the state of not funding their unfunded health care liabilities, the state itself, with about $29.3 billion of unfunded liability, equal to almost 1 year of the state budget. And a lot of things are going in the right direction in North Carolina, but that's not one of them, which is complicating things worse. I'm making things worse as far as the state health plan, which is not the purpose of this meeting, but just to know that we do have some local counties, I believe, and some cities who are part of the state health plan. So anytime costs and premiums go up on them, on the state employees, if you're a participant in this plan, the cost also goes up on them. So somebody get Stanley to turn the temperature down a little bit. Is everybody comfortable or just?
Are you hot or cold? You're hot. You want it colder?
Colder, yeah. Just a little bit colder.
Everybody's got jackets on out there, so I think we'll probably be okay.
All right. So that's our OPEB liability report. Now we'll go to our UAL list, the city of Belmont. Turn it to the meeting.
Good afternoon. This is Jennifer Wimmer. We have one unit on for the unit assistance list status. It's the city of Belmont. They are coming for an installment purchase of $2.6 million to purchase a fire truck, a leaf loader truck, and basically an equipment truck that can be switched up and used for different items that they need. A 10-year loan with Bank of America at 4.22%. And I'm going to turn it over to Kendra to discuss their FPIC.
Kendra, and just to note, because I don't think we've made this clear on this one and maybe some of the other ones, the reason this is being called out separately for this purchasing is because it's a new requirement for units on the UAL to have contracts under $500,000 in 5 years or vehicle purchases approved by the LGC. So that's why this one is being pulled out specifically for them being on the UAL. It's not just that they're on the UAL, but they're coming for a financing contract that is meeting the thresholds now needed for those UAL units. Just wanted to be clear on why that was pulled out separately.
Thank you. So Belmont is on the unit assistance list and has been since 2020. Prior to that, it was on in 2016. So it was on, dropped off, came back on, and this most recent year, it's on for internal control issues. It has no indicators of issues in the general fund or in the water and sewer fund. So financial condition-wise, they're good. Internal control-wise, because we look at trends, they have some issues that have happened in the past. 2 out of the last 5 years, they had late audits, and out of the last 2 years, they had issues with reconciliations, budget violations, statutory violations. Now, it is worth noting that their 2022 audit came in 7 months late to us, but their 2023 came in 2.5 months late. So there is a trend. While there is a trend of being late, there is a trend of coming more timely to us. So they have addressed these issues that came up in internal controls in their FPIC letter, and the plan of action should, implemented in a timely and effective way, take care of the issues. I have had conversations with the finance officer and the town manager, and they have already begun field work on their fiscal year 2024 audit. So with the implementation of their plan of action and the fact that they have done field work, the anticipation is that the audit will come in timely, and these type of things will begin to drop off in their trends, and that they will have some improvement. That is our anticipation, and the outlook for that looks good.
All right, I think we're joined. Is Mr. Piles here?
Yes, sir.
Oh, hey, how are you? Good. Just want to recognize Jared Piles, who's the finance director, and then the assistant city manager, Kevin Krause, I believe, is joining us virtually. So just be available if anybody has any questions. I hope you carpooled. somebody else. But anyway, given that, what's staff's recommendation?
We recommend.
Okay. All right. Alder Holmes has her hand up, and if that's for a motion, or you want to wait till we get a motion and then ask a question?
Whatever is your preference, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Let's get a motion to accept staff's recommendation.
So moved.
Okay.
Auditor Holmes.
Holmes, second. Secretary Marshall. Okay, and Alder Holmes has a question or comment.
My question is regarding the terms of the financing in terms of the interest rate and the term of 10 years. I mean, do we have any evidence that they sought several options? Is this the most ideal option in terms of the interest rate and the terms?
Okay. Were you able to hear the question?
I did not. I apologize.
Try one more time, Alder Holmes. He was walking to the front. Okay.
Sounds good. In terms of the actual terms of the financing, I would assume that you all attempted to ensure that you were receiving the best interest rate for the term, which is 10 years. Any thoughts or comments on just making sure that this is the most ideal interest rate and terms for this financing?
Yes, we did an RFP, had multiple lenders offer rates, and Bank of America came in at the most competitive.
So Bank of America had the lowest available interest rate for a 10-year term?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? Just to give us a little, I know this is broken up in several pieces of equipment. The fire truck is about how much?
2.1 million.
Okay. All right.
That includes upfitting of the truck.
Is that a new truck?
It is.
Okay. Not for Belmont's purposes, but I was recently in Sanford. As LGC knows, we've approved a lot of water and sewer things for that area, and my numbers may be a little off, but with all the ARPA money coming into this country, there's a lot of people who are selling their fire trucks at 10, 15, 20 cents on the dollar. So for anybody who's listening who cares, there seems to be a very active secondary market for used fire trucks where you can buy things a lot cheaper than retail price. So I'm glad the city of, maybe I said Siler City, I don't know. I was Siler City. But maybe as other towns and counties or whatever are thinking about buying equipment, that you'll look at the robust market that exists for used fire equipment and therefore you save some money. So, okay. Any further questions? Okay. Motions on the table? Hearing no, clerk call the roll.
For City of Belmont's financing, Holmes, Marshall, Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Burns. Okay, thumbs up. Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Okay, that motion carries.
Thank you.
Just for the record, aye. Sorry, couldn't find my mic button.
Okay. Mr. Piles, thank you for joining us. Mr. Kraus, thank you for joining us virtually, and good luck.
Yes, sir.
Sure to get you some treats on the way out. We're now to the consent agenda. Members, you have the consent agenda in front of you. Does anybody wish to have anything removed from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I went up to Stokes County a couple of Sundays ago, and it was $11 million on the consent agenda for Stokes County Courthouse. A lot of history in Stokes County, but King, you're not at the county seat. If you're at Hanging Rock State Park, you're near the county seat. If you're downtown Danbury, you're sort of near the government center, but not exactly. So anyway, that's a pretty big purchase. I mean, a pretty big upgrading of their courthouse facility. That's on the consent agenda. Let's get a motion and a second on the table, and then I want to ask some questions. Yeah. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So
I'll move to approve, Philbeck.
Thank you. Second?
second.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And any further discussion? Let me start by New Hanover County, another $37 million. Could somebody put some color on that?
This is Jennifer Wimmer, and to describe that project, it is $37.5 million in limited obligation bonds. They are constructing 2 fire departments in different parts of the county, constructing a library that was on their capital improvement plan in an underserved area, the construction of an ammunition warehouse and a classroom at the Sheriff's Department firing range, and a replacement of roof and exterior improvements to the New Hanover County Senior Center.
How big are ammunition warehouses? Okay, you don't have to answer that. All right. All right. Members, you know, I've been a lot of activity in front of the Local Government Commission regarding New Hanover County and Project Grace and the PPD building and the Cell Hospital and various other purchases made by the community college system. I sit on the state community college board, so I just wanted Jennifer to spend a little extra time. When you see libraries and you see New Hanover County, given the amount of energy that we spent on Project Grace, I just wanted her to give a little more emphasis on that. I'll open up for any other questions, but I wanted to ask Pender County any color on that one, other than the fact that it's the Public Safety Center.
Yes, sir. Pender County is $68 million. They have been given the land by the state of North Carolina, and they are going to have a law enforcement center, including a detention center, sheriff's office, and 911 operations center constructed on that site. One thing of note, the UAL contract box is checked, but as Debbie mentioned before, that is actually not falls under the session law that would provide for those different thresholds. Pender County is on the unit assistance list with financial performance indicators of concern, but they were deemed not material. Kendra can speak to those individually, but that is an overview of the project.
And before Kendra speaks, if this is $68 million that's in front of us now, but my memory's right, that's on top of $100 or so million that we approved. And you can just kind of give us a little update on Pender County and their debt.
What I can tell you about Pender is they are on the unit assistance list, just as Belmont, for internal control issues. Their financial condition and their general fund and water and sewer fund did not provide us with any indicators of concern, but those indicators of concern that they had for this past fiscal year were related to internal controls around their late audit, which was caused by a one-time issue that they had with a consolidation of some utility funds and their software. So that's not something that they anticipate there being an issue with in the future. They did have some budget over expenditures, but they have put in place a plan of action for establishing a monitoring of that budget more closely. And then they have had some issues with reconciliations, and their internal audit compliance officer has been tasked with doing those reconciliations. So that plan of action we did feel would address some of these issues that we have seen in internal controls. So that's the relevant things that I'd like to let you all know about for Pender.
Is my memory correct about the times that they've come in front of us in the last 3.5 years?
Is that Jennifer?
So the last time that they had come was for a school bond referendum, and that has passed. I don't think that they have had a bond sale for that yet. There are plans for more borrowing in the future, but this project was the one that was ready to go and had contracts already in place.
Okay. When you say it's passed, you mean through this board or through the voters?
Both.
Both, okay. So it's voter approved?
Correct.
School bonds?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. While we're on Pender County, we were at Council of State this morning, and Commissioner of Agriculture was giving us his concerns and update about the storm, especially for our coastal communities, all citizens, especially farmers. So as we discuss Pender County or any other part of our state that's getting ready to hit or being hit with tremendous amounts of rain and flooding and wind, let's keep all of those in our thoughts and prayers. So, second, Auditor Holmes.
Mr. Chairman, I echoed those comments by the insurance commissioner at the Council of State meeting. Having been born and raised in Pender County, I did just want to note that for the record, that I was born and raised in Pender County. I do not see my vote as a conflict, but I did want to note for the record that I am born and raised in Pender County, and also that I look forward to seeing the progress on these projects and initiatives.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments or on the consent agenda? Yes.
I did want to make a couple of additional informational points. We have verified any of the outstanding bond ratings. They have come in since the printing, and we have added Asheville at AA1 and AA+, and Charlotte at AAA stable, and Charlotte revenue bonds will have a not to exceed of a true interest of 5%.
Okay. That was additional information for the consent agenda. Any more questions regarding the consent agenda? All right. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Hearing no further discussion, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay. For today's consent agenda, which begins with Asheville and runs through several miscellaneous action items, the last being the Cape Fear Public Utility Authority / Wrightsville Beach matter. And the motion is Philbeck, second Hoffman. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Marshall? Aye. Secretary Penny?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Mr. Butler? Aye. Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carried.
Jennifer, you want to go over our non-action items?
The one non-action item we have is a USDA revenue band for LaGrange. They had a 15-month revenue bond anticipation note with Truist. That is taken out upon completion with a USDA financing. That will only be taken out upon completion, so the project is not completed yet. Truist has agreed to extending the terms through March 20th of 2025 to give time for the project to be completed, and at that time the USDA will then take out the long-term loan.
Okay. Thank you. That's not voting, right?
No.
Okay. Now we're to our attachment D on Cabarrus County. We're joined here by the chairman of the board, Mike Downs, the county manager, assistant county manager, Jim, finance director, legal, Evan Lee, and two associates for Carter and Associates, two representatives from Carter and Associates. Members, we, in the last meeting, there was a lot on the table regarding Cabarrus County. This is what we're asking you to vote on is the taking out the bans for $186 million. Jennifer, would you like to say anything about that?
Sure. This particular part of the financing is standalone. It is for $186 million in limited obligation bonds. It will fix the bans that are going to be taken out that are due. They were short-term construction financing, so they are looking to fully draw down and fix out for 20 years this $186 million. These projects are either nearly complete or complete.
Okay. With that, I'll entertain a motion. The staff's recommendation is to.
We recommend.
I'll entertain a motion to accept staff's recommendation to take out the $186 million of bans for Cabarrus County.
So moved. Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Burns.
Second, Penny.
Thank you, Secretary Penny. Motion second being made. I know we're joined in person by a lot of folks here today, but the only item that's before us is the taking out of these bonds, period. In the last meeting, there was talk about building and more bonds and more bans and more bonds and more bans. That is not before us on the agenda today. It's the governing body of Cabarrus County can do what it likes, but I would hope that that they would look to the voters when it comes to meeting the long-term capital needs of that community and ask for their vote when they're talking about hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of debt. But that's your choice. But I think you might be pleasantly surprised how much support you would get from the county if you would tell them what you're doing and ask for them to vote on the debt and come through normal types of borrowings like most people do and finance it on long term and fix the rates. And that way you're not rolling the dice in terms of interest rate cost. And based on how voter approved general obligation bonds are issued, it's a win-win situation. If interest rates go up further after you borrow the money, you've borrowed money at lower interest rates. If interest rates go down, depending on how they're structured, you can refinance them like you would your house. It's not complicated, and I hope Cabarrus County will take that into account as they move forward to meet their long-term needs. So make sure I don't have any hands up. We have a motion and a second on the table to approve only the taking out of the limited $186 million of limited obligation bonds for Cabarrus County. Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
All right, for Cabarrus County, and as the treasurer said, the $186 million lobs for the takeout of the ban. That was motion Burns and second by Penny. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Marshall.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Mr. Philbeck.
Aye.
Treasurer Falwell.
I'm going to vote no. I agreed to put this on the agenda, and I do what I tell people I'm going to do. I think that I've never, in all my years of presiding, either the General Assembly or all the boards that I chair, I've never had something fail for lack of emotion, as it did in our last meeting. And I feel like my no vote's not a protest vote, it's just a vote to send the signal that, as Mr. Butler always says, this is the last stop for so many communities across North Carolina. And that people in Cabarrus County need to know that the folks at LGC are listening. So my vote's a no vote.
That motion carries 7 yes, 1 no.
Thank you.
Point of personal information to these guests. The intervening county commissioners meeting since you were here last was a pretty hot meeting, was it not, on this topic?
Mr. Chairman, if you'll introduce yourself, welcome.
Yes, I'm Steve Morris, Chairman of the Board of Commissioners. Yes, ma'am. There are a limited number of individuals, yes, that had comments about that.
Well, I personally have to object to being called a crook in a public meeting, disparaging the members of this council, and I'm not blaming you, who try to do their work, don't deserve that kind of treatment.
Madam Secretary of State, I would absolutely agree with you, and I found the dialogue and the comments that were made at that meeting insulting to the integrity of not only the members of this board, but of Cabarrus County, and certainly myself included. So I apologize on behalf of certain residents of Cabarrus County, and I appreciate you bringing that up.
Any other questions, since the chairman's here? To follow along with that, since you're here, I know that you've been here several times visiting with us, and once again, we're just two old guys on a park bench talking, okay? So you take my advice or not take my advice. But my sense is that sometimes based on what I hear, and I wasn't there, that there's a notion that the more you talk to us to try to convince us of something that we don't think is sound policy, that just by talking to us more, that all of a sudden that we're going to change. And that's not been my experience with our staff, that they have reasons for saying what they say, and they have good suggestions for sound debt management policy practices that prevent people from getting in trouble. I mean, that's their job. They're not here for that reason. That's why this board's here. So I hope that you'll take their advice and try to do things in a less complicated, simpler way in Cabarrus County as you go forward. I was not aware of the meeting that you just referenced. I don't know, was that the one recently?
It's just between the last time they were here and today.
Okay, how many meetings have you had between the last time you were here and today?
We've had one regular work session, one regular meeting, which Secretary Marshall referred to, and one work session that was held last night.
Was there anything said last night regarding expectations for debt? Was there a long discussion about more borrowings and more applications to the LGC? And can you give us kind of a summary of that?
There were questions about I think at our last regular meeting, the Secretary Marshall was referring to, there was discussion about the activity of the last local government commission meeting. And one of the things that we reported at that meeting was that we were scheduled for conversations with LGC staff that following day. And so there were requests from some of our board members as to a report as to how those conversations went. And of course, the answer that we gave back was we felt like they were very productive and that we plan to be at this meeting today to address the issue of the takeout of those bans that had been approved in May of 2022.
In the last meeting, I'd asked for an analysis about this type of financing, whether it cost you more or less. Do you know if that was done by your financial advisor?
Yes, it was. And with your permission, I'd like to call on Jeremy Carter. He can give us some facts on those analysis.
And before I recognize Jeremy, you said there was a meeting yesterday. Was there discussion about more borrowings? And can you give us a detail of those?
There was some questions about the other.
What was on the agenda of the work session? Yeah.
I think the item on the agenda of the work session that brought about discussion was some of the construction contracts on the behavioral health facility that is proposed to be built on the property that purchased that we discussed at the last meeting. And the reason that was on the agenda was to comply with LGC requirements as far as contracts that need to be in place and so forth before we come back for approval on that project. That would be the project that would be in collaboration with the state of North Carolina, which we've already received $32.5 million from the General Assembly for the construction of that regional behavioral health facility. And so that was the item that was on the agenda.
And the total of that, not just for that, but in the last meeting you talked about schools, you talked about ACM, you talked about behavioral health. The total, are we, in the work session yesterday, were we talking tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, the total of all that?
The item that was on our agenda for yesterday, which was the additional amount on the behavioral health facility, those figures were not completed yet, so it was pulled off our consent agenda for discussion at our regular meeting in 2 weeks. And so we'll have those figures then.
But did you talk, follow up, did you talk about school? I'm looking for hands, if anybody raises their hand. Did you talk about school needs, community college needs, or anything of that nature?
We did not have that discussion at our meeting last night, and that was not on the agenda. The items that you're talking about, which we had discussed previously, were items that were approved in our budget, which was approved in June of this year, and that those will be items that we'll be coming back to talk about later on. And we do have several elementary schools, 2 elementary schools, a community college facility, and a number of miscellaneous roof replacements, HVAC systems, things of that nature.
Okay. Thank you. And is it, as chair, is it your intent to meet the long-term financial needs of Cabarrus County to go to the voters and ask for votes for those important construction needs? Those are conversations that we have not had as a board going forward. I think on our past issuances, like the one that we want to take out today, which thank you for approving that in that vote, the determining factor for us has been, first of all, we determine the need for those projects, and particularly I use the elementary schools as an example. We've provided the commission staff with reports that the school system has engaged outside counsel to come in
and project the needs, to look at our mobile unit needs and those kind of things. So it has been primarily a decision about what is the most economical way to finance those projects. The difference between the limited obligation bonds and the general obligation bonds has not been significant enough in the past that we felt warranted the GO bonds. If that should change in the future, and that's a more economical way to finance the needs are there, then we would certainly be open to that approach.
I was on the school board in Forsyth County for 8 years, and at that time it was the 125th largest system in the United States. And it's not as big a leap in faith as you might think to go to the voters, especially when things as important as public education, and ask for their permission. And in my experience, Forsyth County, every bond and it builds trust and certainty in terms of the interest cost. And when the Forsyth County came back for the second and third, asked the voters to approve it, the voters approved them all, and they were wildly successful, not just in terms of getting the voters to approve it, but also in terms of getting the things out on a timely basis, where those projects were done under budget within schedule. Which is kind of important. So,
and I think that was some of the comments that were made at the last meeting when we were here regarding both the use of local obligation bonds versus GO bonds for school projects, as well as some of the conversations that we had about whether that was a draw program with bands or traditional financing, certainly brought about some questions in my mind. And we had one member of our board that came back with the comment, we're the only people in the state of North Carolina that is financing projects in this fashion, which prompted me to do some research on that and say, well, just exactly how many counties in North Carolina are issuing limited obligation bonds for school projects. And I think the number that I got back was 54 counties in North Carolina, including, I think Wake was one of those counties, Durham County, a number of them. I won't try to.
Cumberland, Forsyth.
Cumberland, Forsyth, all, so it's just, the way that we've handled it is nothing out of the ordinary or extraordinary based on my research. But I certainly value your comments and your recommendations. I feel like Cabarrus County has followed good advice from a lot of good folks over the years, and that's the reason that we currently have 3 AAA bond ratings and have not experienced difficulties. And so we hope to continue that.
Sure. Well, I'm just going to speak from my heart. And this board knows this, we regulate about 1,200 entities. This board does. Counties, cities, water and sewer districts, airport authorities, hospitals, universities. Probably 99% of them would give their eye tooth to be in Cabarrus County situation in terms of growth and economic vitality. You see, and that's why there's so many. That's not your problem, but as I said earlier, I just don't think that it should be this difficult. And I hope that you'll take that advice, but it's up to you and your governing board whether you take that advice or not. So, just briefly, Mr. Carter, you had something.
Oh, what you had asked for some comparisons to. So we just ran some numbers based upon current markets. So as you probably remember, the last deals for the county that take out of the current draw program. That was done, those are 2022 A's. They were sold on May 18th of 22. They had an all-in TIC of 3.876. Under a current scenario, and you'd have to work in some premium, you have to find out the day of pricing, but under current scenarios, our July 26th scale that is received from Bank of America, which I think we'd all agree is a well-respected underwriter, we're at 3.65, so that is currently 22.6 basis points lower than where we could have issued in May of 2022. Obviously, the markets are continuing to move in our favor since that July 26 scale. I had another one run yesterday. We are now at 335, so another 30 basis points improvement in the scale compared to the 3.876 of May 2022. So feeling very good about where rates are in comparison to where we could have been in 2022. Also, not to get in the weeds about draw programs again, but the county has only had to pay during the construction period interest on the money they have actually drawn, which is one of the benefits of a draw program. In working with the finance director, CFO of Cabarrus County, over the last 2 years, that amount was approximately $5.8 million in interest. No principal was paid, as is typical with a draw program. If you compare that to where we would be if we had issued the debt up front, our interest cost, making those same assumptions I just went through, our interest cost would have been in the $12 million range, and we would also have been paying principal, which would have been at approximately $8 million per year in those first 2 years. So considerably more interest, and we're looking very good in comparison to the 2022 offering.
Do you mind sharing that with our staff so we can scrub all that?
Yeah, I'd be
That'd
glad
be
to.
great. Thank you. And then, lastly, when you talk about these future needs, are you obligating the county? Are you spending money, even though these future needs are out there? We've all discussed them. For costs associated with some of those projects before the financing is approved. Things you spoke about that you discussed yesterday.
I think the traditional expenses that would be incurred in preparing for those projects, surveys, architectural evaluations, etc. Those things down the line, and so those expenditures are made on those projects in order to prepare the information that we would need to have before we would come before this board. I think, which would be pretty normal.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Auditor Holmes.
Auditor Holmes, yes, ma'am. Do we have a raise hand function?
We do. I just saw it. I just saw she.
I don't know how to use it, but I'm sure she does. Auditor Holmes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question is directed towards the chairman of the Cabarrus Board of Commissioners. I'll start by saying that I also watched that board meeting that Secretary Marshall referenced. And I believe there was one commissioner who said something to the effect of, we shouldn't do the same thing expecting different results. And so I wanted to reconcile my vote today with my previous comments and concerns. I don't have any doubt that there are needs within the county. However, I am still not convinced that using limited obligation bonds in this instance is the best policy as opposed to using general obligation bonds. That said, I don't know if this is a matter of poor planning or poor policy. That is up for the voters in Cabarrus to decide. That said, what I will say is that I do not believe this is the most transparent means, nor is it good government in terms of the lack of engagement process that would be required to put a bond on the ballot. But again, in terms of my vote in support of this funding today, my position is that the wisdom of the Cabarrus County voters will determine in the long run whether or not they believe this is good policy or otherwise.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Holmes. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a couple, Mr. Treasurer. Sir, Mr. Chairman, on the paper, I thought you said your ratings were AAA. Did I hear that?
That is correct.
Across the board.
Well, our marketability is double that. That's what we've got on our.
Yeah, I think that is an error.
I think that's an error then on. Okay. In planning for your schools, sir, have you, you in any county, are you taking a look at the impact vouchers are having, and are you determining the school by what you're projecting would be the public enrollment, or have you adjusted it for what you think the number will be with vouchers so you're not building more schools than you need? And that isn't a problem only for you.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the number bouncing around the state is 55,000.
Right.
Vouchers hadn't been approved.
Right.
So, I mean, do you know how many kids are going to schools on vouchers? And
I don't have that information on the top of my head. I think the report that we supplied to staff, that was the study that was conducted by the school system within the last year, does take into account the number of charter schools in the county, the number of vouchers that they are aware of. All of those factors were included in that study.
you feel comfortable you've addressed that? The county has addressed that in the school board.
I think as deliberately and carefully as could be done with the information available. Quite honestly, well, I can't say this is off the record. Obviously, it's on the record. But you know, if you told me you need one fewer new school, that'd be good news.
Well, I think that's an issue we're addressing across the state. Is how much school we built. You still got to cool it. You still got the insurance. You still got to do the maintenance on it. You've got to do all those issues, and we're sitting with a lot of vacant space.
Yeah, and of course, I know that is very true. And when I talk to other counties across the state, you know, typically if you sit down at the breakfast table with other county commissioners, there's a question: what's the most pressing issue in your county right now? My answer every time is going to be capital construction for schools. You know, we have constant demands, and there's always somebody sitting on the other side of the table that says, gosh, wish we had that problem. You know, our school enrollment is shrinking, and we're having to determine which schools we're going to close. Yeah, that obviously could shift from year to year, but that has not been the case in Cabarrus County. And the study that I've referred to indicates that we are maxed out on the number of mobile units that we can place at these school sites. In most cases, it's code issues and fire safety issues and things of that nature. So the actual physical space for students is a problem.
So you would be of the opinion that whatever the enrollment was 2 years ago in Cabarrus County, that it, for the public school system, has increased and not decreased because of vouchers?
Oh, absolutely.
Absolutely.
You're saying over the last 2 years?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have the exact numbers. I think the projections over the next 10 years are 5,000 additional students over the past 2 years, and one of our staff members may be better versed on that than I am, but I'm strictly from memory. I want to say it's been about 2,000 students that our enrollment has increased over the last 2 years.
And that hasn't been offset by 2,000 students that are going into schools that use the vouchers.
That's net.
Net.
Yes, sir.
What's your population growth been 10 years?
I think in the last census, we were the third fastest growing county in the state of North Carolina. The actual population numbers, we're at about 249,000 right now. I think in the census prior to that, we were at 220, I think.
How many students do you have?
In the Cabarrus County schools, I think they're currently at about 32,000 students. And then we have a smaller system, Kannapolis City Schools, that's about 600 students.
So you still have a city school system up there?
Yeah, we have Kannapolis City School System, which is half in Cabarrus County, half in Rowan County, and then Cabarrus County School System.
So it extends beyond the city limits?
Yes, sir. Yes,
and
sir.
Do you know if they have a supplemental current expense tax that they've approved to run that school system?
They do not.
I would just, as you
Thank
leave,
you.
Thank you. As you leave here I'm on the State Board of Education, and there are communities of our state that are gaining, dozens or hundreds of people a day. But their school enrollment is flat and has been for 5 years. So I would say, and you can choose whether you want to do this or not, that you can talk about being the third fastest growing, but at the end of the day, it's about how many customers you're going to have in the public school system. And the numbers that I got this morning from the superintendent of public instruction is that either 20 or 25% of North Carolina K-12 eligible students are not choosing the public school system. So you could have a community that's growing, but the public school population is flat or even going down. That may be the case in Forsyth County. It's pretty close to that in Guilford, not exactly, but it's pretty close in the Guilford County schools. So I'm saying it's awkward for me to say to be careful, but there's no other word for it. Because people have all this stuff in their head, when they see the population growing, but the school-age population decreasing, and the number and the percentage of people not choosing public education growing. So whatever you do to have to measure 4 times and cut once when it comes to these statistics, I think it's valuable to y'all. Not just a...
That would be a great project for the North Carolina County Commissioners to undertake, is to take a picture where we are with our school system.
Yes, sir.
And what our enrollment has dropped down, because New Hanover County is an up and kicking growing county, but their school population is going down. Their public enrollment,
right,
yes, sir,
is going down.
Mr. Burns, that's a real hand you got up there.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll put it right here. Just to say a couple of things here. Sorry about that. I voted in favor as a former county commissioner of Wake County. We used lobs at least twice that I can recall where I was on the county commission. So I do recognize that it is a tool that is in the toolbox of county commissioners and county managers. It's available for a reason and is useful, particularly in taking out old debt, things like that. I was not in the last meeting and so did not participate in the conversations about this in the last meeting, but I wanted to explain that I voted for this because it is, and following on to the conversation that just happened, I remain convinced that it is the local governments commission's responsibility to ensure fiscal compliance and fiscal capacity of our local governments. It is not our position to be a super county commission imposing our policy judgments on those of the elected officials of these counties. And just to add, now I agree with the auditor that these commissioners, if their voters believe that they have not shared sufficient information with them before incurring this type of limited obligation bond, will face those voters, and that's why they run, and I no longer do. But I think it's important as we look at schools and the growth of our county and our state, our counties and our state, that it is the obligation of county commissioners and boards of education in these counties to build an education system that people do not choose to leave. And they may decide that it's important to spend the money, as we have done in Wake County, to build a public school system that people choose to remain in, and to offer that type of public service. I don't think it's a good excuse to say, well, we don't need to spend money on our public schools because people are choosing to leave it. That to me is exactly backwards, and I just wanted to put that in. But I think it's important that this board remember that it is not our position, at least not in my opinion, to be second guessing the policy choices of these county commissioners. It's more important that we just serve as a backstop for the fiscal capability and solvency of our municipalities and counties. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bolton. Very valuable. Well, thank you all. Cabarrus County, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, sir.
And we'll now go to our next agenda item, unit appeals proposed to noncompliance.
Cindy, I just wanted to note that Mr. Philbeck said we need to step out at about 2:45 for a while.
Thanks.
And while folks are leaving the room, just want to thank everybody from the units who have been waiting for this discussion item, and want to make sure that we take the time to address, this is, again, a significant new authority given to the commission by the legislature last year to withhold a portion of sales tax distributions for units with late audits. So I wanted to make sure we take the time to walk through where we've been and where we're at and what staff is recommending to you today. So members, in your attachment E, I'll be working from that just so you know what we're walking through. But I provided for you first a summary of essentially, again, where we started. As of April 1st, there were 135 counties and municipalities that had not submitted a fiscal year 23 audit. Those units received notices as required under the law. And I broke those down for you into essentially how late they were. We had a number of units that were 1 year late and had no previous audits late. And just a quick sort of footnote for the rest of the discussion here. When I say late for the context of this discussion, it means it wasn't submitted later than 1 calendar year after fiscal year end. There's a lot of uses of the word an audit being late, but again, for the purposes of this law, late is that it came in after July 1st of the year following the fiscal year end. So we had 55 units that had not submitted their 23 audit, but their previous 4 years were not late. We had 44 units who had not submitted their 23 audit, but at least one other of the prior 4 years were submitted late. We had 33 units that had not submitted 2 years of audits, and 3 units who had not submitted 3 or more years of audits. So that's where we started. Again, the following pages, I just wanted to provide you with the details in case you are curious about the specific units. I did note for you the units that submitted their appeals. I did want to note, and this will come into a comment I'll make later, we had 4 units that as of April 1st were missing 2 years of audits, and they managed to get both of those missing audits in that amount of time. That was Burgaw, Carthage, Columbus County, and McDonald. So I wanted to just be sure to mention those as units that managed to get both of the 2 years of audits in that time. Again, this was a new law, So it came with a set of challenges as we worked to implement it. Went through a few of those for you. One of those challenges was just confirming that these local governments receive these notices. It's really harder than you would think and harder than we anticipated just to get valid email addresses for governing board members, for finance staff, and confirming that these units receive these notices. We spent significant staff time, though, ensuring that every single unit was aware of these notices and of their ability to appeal. So, again, that was a little, we knew that challenge would be there. It was a little more significant than I expected. Another challenge was just units understanding what this law meant and that they could appeal. We faced that with a number of units who weren't sure what the authority was of the LGC or the right they had to appeal. And finally, obviously, one of the challenges...
We're not going to be in the Olympics.
You're right.
We're not doing a 4x100.
One of the challenges, and this is something that Secretary Marshall spoke to previously, is just how to fairly apply this authority to these units with late audits. Again, being a first year of implementation, how do we be sure that we're applying this law fairly to all the units, and how do we fairly assess, essentially, their appeals? So just wanted to highlight some of those challenges and talk about some of the recommendations. I do want to say, though, with all those challenges and with everything I'm about to present about recommendations moving forward, staff firmly believes that this was a necessary authority for the commission, and we believe it's been really important. We've gotten a lot of... This puts the sort of the power of the LGC behind staff's words saying that audits are important. It's really brought attention. We've gotten emails from commission members who didn't know maybe that their audits were behind, looking for status. So it's gotten a lot of attention of folks and really reinforcing how important these audits are. Not only, obviously, they're required under law, they provide accountability and transparency for taxpayer funds that these local governments have. So we believe that this has been a very valuable tool for the commission in their oversight role. In looking at where we've come to and what we've seen in this first year, one of the recommendations we would make is that for next year, we recommend to the commission that the guideline for successful appeal be broadened to any unit that's 1 year behind. So this year, the guideline for successful appeal was if you are 1 year behind and none of your other prior 4 years were late, you were granted, it was essentially an automatic, quote, automatic appeal. Staff, I'm suggesting broadening that because, again, to me, the intent of this law wasn't to ensnare folks who were off 1 year for some reason. And some of these units that were late in prior years, it might have been 4 years ago, but they had good patterns since then. So in order to help us focus in on the units that we think this law most needs to be applied to, staff is recommending at a future point before next year, we broaden those guidelines for successful appeal. Again, of the 135 unit notices that were issued, 73% were issued to units that hadn't submitted the FY23 audit, but had submitted all prior year audits. So again, this isn't, to me, who the law was intended for. So I would suggest broadening that appeal, that guideline for appeal. That being said, we want to work over the next year to really engage with these units that relate 2 or more years with a specific, detailed, documented plan for engagement with these units to see what are they doing to get caught up, what are the challenges they're facing, to go through each and every appeal to create metrics on the reasons they're giving us for why they've been late. Really dig into this issue because we know it's there and find out some of the causes, and then be able to come back next year with a better structure for appeals, with recommendations for how we can assist these units, or even potentially with recommendations for the commission to consider dissolution of some of these municipalities where staff feels it should be recommended. So essentially, let this first year, we've learned a lot this first year, and these suggestions we're making will help us to continue to implement this law and continue to use it the way we believe the General Assembly wanted it to be used, which was to address and have some enforcement authority behind the late audit requirement. So with that being said, what staff is recommending to you today is for any of the units that have filed an appeal, either based on, any unit that have submitted an appeal based on the guideline for successful appeal, that those appeals will be granted, just under the guidelines you've already established. For the units that have filed an appeal based on other good cause and haven't submitted either 1 or even 2 years of audits, we're recommending that no action be taken by the commission. Again, we're recommending staff go back, dig into these issues, meet with these units, have a year's worth of engagement and information to bring back to you next year when we come back to this point again. So we're recommending that any of the units that have submitted appeals to you, we're going to narrow down. We've got a few that's true. Either 1 or 2 years late, if they've appealed, they've submitted an appeal and they're only 1 or 2 years late, we're recommending that the LGC take no action. We have a couple other units to discuss, though, that we do recommend action being taken. One, we have one unit that chose not to appeal. That is Lucama. I spoke with the finance officer this morning, and he has given me permission to tell you everything I'm about to tell you. He was not able to attend today. He is happy to have this sort of out there as an incentive for them to get caught up. They have been behind for years. They were 2 years late. They got their 22 submitted in July. They're on target to getting their 23 in by around September or October. They're hoping to have their 24 in on time. He is thrilled that they will finally be caught up for the first time in 5 years. I said, Mr. Mayor, would you like to participate in the meeting or make an appeal? You do know you can make an appeal. I've talked to him before. He said, I'm not going to waste your time making an appeal. I need to spend my time getting my audits caught up. So he recognizes, he said his board is aware of his recommendation not to appeal. So that town is not appealing. They understand the authority of the commission to withhold a portion of his sales tax. He understands that he can't appeal the action, and they are choosing not to appeal. So that's one situation. I'd like to give you an overview quickly of these, and then we can go back and dive into details. We have 2 units that have not submitted 3 or more years of audits. The town of Black Creek has not submitted audits for fiscal years 2020, 2021, 2022, or 2023, and has not appealed. They have not submitted an appeal. We can circle back. Kendra has been working closely with that unit and in a lot of discussions with them. They have decided not to appeal. So we will circle back on details on that one. The town of Littleton is missing 3 years of audits, fiscal year 2021, 2022, and 2023. They have submitted an appeal. However, staff is still recommending withholding sales tax due to those 3 years of missing audits. And then our final category is units that have not filed an appeal. As of our last meeting, when I reported last, there had been 9 units as of our last meeting who hadn't responded, basically, who hadn't submitted an appeal. I made a last-ditch effort to connect with every single one of those units personally, all 9 of those. And in some cases, again, there was a misunderstanding about whether or not they could appeal. There was, again, some misunderstandings about the applicability of the law. And so with those units, with those communications and those outreach, we're down to 3 units that did not submit an appeal despite all the communication and all the attempts we made to connect with them. That was towns of Coleraine and Speed and Hemby Bridge. I will note, though, that Hemby Bridge did submit their audit on July 31st. So they are now essentially, no action can be taken at this point because their audit is in. So again, we've got 3 buckets essentially of units that we're recommending withholding of sales tax. The first is Lucama, because they have chosen not to submit an appeal and they're fully aware of what that means. The second bucket is units that haven't submitted 3 or more years of audits, and that's the town of Black Creek and the town of Littleton. And then we have units that have not filed an appeal, and that's going to be the town of Coleraine and the town of Speed. We do have representatives from all, besides Lucama, we have representatives of those other units available, but I would ask, just for the benefit of the folks who are on from those other towns, if the commission would be amenable to moving forward with the first proposed resolution, which is essentially that no action will be taken regarding the withholding of sales tax for the units that are listed in Attachment A and Attachment B. That would be, and if y'all don't mind, just for those listening, I'd like to run through those just to take a time so those towns are clear who that is. So that, again, staff is recommending that the commission not take action to withhold sales tax for the following units. These units, this first group is units that submitted appeals based on the guideline for successful appeal. That would be Autryville, Dobson, Ellenboro, Graham County, Maysville, Seagrove, Stanley, Starr, Tabor City, Taylortown, Transylvania County, and Walnut Cove. There will be an amendment to the resolution you have in front of you because Drexel has since submitted their audit. So Drexel is included on your resolution but can be removed because they submitted their audit on August 2nd. The second set of units that the LGC is, that the staff is recommending to the commission.
I'll just put a bow on attachment A then. So you're going to be asking them to vote.
One resolution for both of these groups, okay, actually. So second group is the appeals filed based on other good cause. That'll be for Aberdeen, Allender, Aurora, Bailey, Bellhaven, Bethel, Candor, Caswell County, Cherokee County, Chocowinity, Columbus. Columbus County should be removed. They submitted both of their audit reports. Dover, East Arcadia, East Spencer, Elizabeth City, Elm City, Everett, Gaston, Jackson, Kelford, Kenley, Lake Lore, Lewiston Woodville, Lylesville, Lewisburg, McClesfield, Macon, Micro, Middlesex, Morven, Newland, Newport, Pikeville, Princeville, Ramseur, Randleman, Rich Square, Robbins, Robbinsville, Robertsonville, Rhonda, Siler City, Spring Lake, Stantonsburg, Taylorsville, Vanceboro, and Whitakers. Appreciate your patience with that, but just wanted to make sure for anyone on the line, if they were curious if they fell in those groups, they did. So again, staff recommends that the LGC not take action to withhold sales tax for any of those units mentioned in Attachment A or Attachment B.
Mr. Chairman, State Auditor Holmes, and I'm happy to make the motion according to staff's recommendation regarding the aforementioned towns, cities, and counties. I would also like to note for the record that of the towns that I'm familiar with that were listed, many of them seem to be rural areas that may have issues in terms of recruiting and retaining talent. And so I would just like to point out that ideally, there's obviously room for improvement when it comes to engagement and supporting particularly small and rural towns.
Thank you for that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Secretary Marshall seconds. Any further discussions about the motion or staff's recommendation? And Mr. Burns, by the way, I love the hand thing. So if anybody needs to get my attention, just do that. That's that because I'm focused on what the people in front of me are saying, and that helps me. Thank you. Any further discussion? Okay. Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay. This is for the resolution regarding successful appeals, the sales tax distributions for those units listed on attachments A and B with Drexel and Columbus County no longer needed to be on those. The motion is Holmes, second Marshall. Secretary Penny? Oh, he's not voting. Forgot. Okay, not voting. Mr. Burns?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Butler? Aye. Councilwoman Hoffman?
Aye.
I'm assuming Mr. Philbeck is absent. It's the time he's,
Yes.
And Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Okay, I think that's enough.
So, commission members, that leaves us with moving forward with Lucama, Black Creek, Littleton, Colerain, and Speed. Would you like to take, I suggest we take Lucama first. Again, Lucama has chosen not to appeal.
Let me interrupt you.
Yes, sir.
For all those that are joining us virtually, if you were part of those original lists, that means that the board has just voted to grant the exemption. So you're welcome to stay on. Thank you for joining us today. And as respectfully as I can, I hope we never hear about you again next year. So you're welcome to stay on, but all those names that were read in to the record on attachment A or attachment B, the board has now voted to grant those exemptions.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. And I see the numbers dropping as we talk. So Lucama, again, as background, which was provided, some of that background was provided in your write-up, and some.
These individually?
Yes, individually. We have commission members, in order for you more to easily consider each one, we did present you with one resolution for each unit so that you could take individual action on each as you felt appropriate. Again, Lucama was. Sorry.
Given what you've heard from Cindy about Lucama and her conversation with leadership down there, do I hear a motion to approve the resolution regarding Lucama?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Second?
Second, Burns.
I'm sorry, just to be clear, this is a resolution to withhold sales tax. I just want to be clear. Okay, because the first one was to not withhold. I just want to be sure we're clear that this was to withhold.
This is an amount of $32,100, right?
Yes. That may be withheld. That may be withheld. Yeah. Motion is second on the floor. Any further discussion? Lucama's not on.
Lucama is not on. I spoke with the mayor. He said he wouldn't be joining us.
We will on the other ones then. Okay. Hearing none, call the roll.
Did I hear Mr. Butler as the second?
And I'm sorry. Yes, and I apologize. I didn't speak to the mayor. I spoke to the administrator of Lucama.
Okay. Mr. Butler seconded. Is that right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. All right. This is just for the town of Lucama, the sales tax withholding. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Marshall.
Aye.
Secretary Penny, we skip. Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Butler, Hoffman, Philbeck, abs. Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Okay. That's also 6 yes.
Okay. Next.
The next unit is Black Creek. Black Creek, again, is missing fiscal year audits 2020, 2021, 2022, and 23. They did not submit an appeal, and Kendra has been working with that unit and can answer any questions or provide any information that the commission might have.
So yes, I have had multiple phone conversations with their finance officer. I have, and we've had some emails back and forth. I have asked to speak to the mayor. I've not received a return phone call from him. I've made 3 requests, I did go back and look and the records and found that in 2015, the unit was 4 months late, 2016, 5 months late, 2017, 7 months late, 2018, it jumped to 20 months, and in 2019, we're now at 4 years. If you happen to be on the board back in 2020, there was an action that was taken by this commission in 2020 to require that this unit hire a third-party accountant to work on their records and get them caught up. That was in response to not having the 2018 and 2019 audit. So the unit was able to get the 2018 done just a month later after that action was taken by this commission, but has still not been able to get the 2019, and then got the 2019 to us just in November of 2023. So now they are working on the 2020. I have been told by the finance officer that their plan is to get 2 years done for the next 2 years. Of course, they still would be behind, even with that plan. They do have $1.1 million in debt as of the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2019. So there is that concern. At this point, we don't know if they've taken on more debt. We don't know. We do know that they've been paying on that debt. But there are a lot of unanswered questions. In 2019, their water and sewer quick ratio had dropped drastically. From 2017, it was a 56.85. 2018, it dropped to 27.15, and now, in 2019, it dropped down to 13.06. While that's still a nice quick ratio, each year since, if it continues that pattern, we don't know where they are at this point in their water and sewer fund. That's just one reason why we need this information in a timely manner. In their last audit report for 2019, the findings that they had were related to not being able to provide the records timely. They had issues with internal controls, budget over expenditures, and there were multiple other internal control issues that were brought up. So that's information that I wanted to provide to you all in regards to Black Creek.
Do I hear a motion to accept staff's recommendation to approve the resolution?
So moved.
Councilwoman Hoffman makes a motion. Second.
A second.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Motion second being made to take staff's recommendation regarding the resolution regarding withholding of money from Black Creek. Is anybody on the phone from Black Creek?
I am not seeing anyone. Let me double check.
If anybody's on the phone from Black Creek, just
drop a message.
Raise your hand or drop us a message.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Does this town have any regular sources of federal money, state money coming in?
In 2019, they had a CDBG grant that they closed out. Maybe that may have even been in 2015, but they had findings with that they had not expended their match for that fund for that project. But to our knowledge, based on the 2019, they did not have any.
What's the repercussions when they don't spend their match? I guess each grants are a little bit different, but generally, what are the repercussions for not doing the match? You don't get another one?
Yeah, it could be you don't get another one, or that you, it depends on what the grant agreement says. It could mean that they have to pay back all the money that they've already received on that grant.
Sad. It really is.
And they do have an electric fund as well as a water and sewer fund.
They're a member of Electricities.
I don't know if they're a member of Electricities. I can look that up for you, though.
Okay. Thanks. Other questions? All right. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
All right, the sales tax withholding from the town of Black Creek. Motion Hoffman, second. Butler. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Marshall. Aye. Skip Penny. Mr. Burns.
Thank you. Aye.
All right, thank you.
Somebody muted my typing. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Butler, Hoffman, and Mr. Philbeck's probably still absent. And Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carried.
Thank you, members. Now we're down to next.
Littleton. That we do have representatives from Littleton with us. They did submit an appeal, which is in your packet there. And I would suggest probably that their staff would be best able to answer questions of the commission with regards to their appeal or their status.
I think what we should do is get a motion on the floor to approve the staff recommendation, then we'll go in discussion and then ask the town to answer any questions anybody might have. Okay, do I hear a motion to approve withholding of sales tax contribution from Littleton?
Sure, I'll make the motion.
Okay. Motion being made by Mr. Butler, second.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Hoffman. Motion second being made. Now we're in the discussion. I want to welcome the folks from Littleton for joining us. Does anybody have any questions? The Ellers, Ellen, Eller, and Josie Jones, EE and JJ, and Clyde Johnson are joining us.
I'm only showing Ellen Ellers online, and she's self-muted.
Okay. Ellen, could you unmute if you'd like to make any remarks, please?
She's still muted.
Okay. Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion?
Is that Ellen Eller still showing connected?
I do. It shows she's not attentive, but it just has her still as connected.
Should the minutes note that we've given a chance to speak, but yet
Yes, a great idea.
nothing?
Would you like us to email her and circle? Okay.
Let the minutes reflect that we called on the folks from Littleton to respond once, twice, and now 3 times regarding.
I apologize. I did not know we were muted.
Oh, is this Ms. Eller?
No, this is Josie Jones. Ellen and I are both in the same room together. I apologize. I thought I unmuted and I did not.
Okay, you have the floor in case you'd like to say anything for a couple minutes or if any board member has any question.
Yeah, we really don't have anything to add other than we do have officers that are currently working on 2021 and 2022. They're starting to do the field work for now. And that's as far as we've gotten in the audits at this point, to this point.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And,
yes, sir.
And you understand the resolutions that's before us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, by the way. We have a motion and a second on the table. Any further discussion for board members or questions? Hearing none, Ms. Clerk will call the roll.
Okay. Withholding of sales tax distribution from the town of Littleton. Motion Butler, second Hoffman. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Marshall. Aye. Mr. Burns. Hello, Mr. Burns.
I'm going to say aye, but yeah, aye. That was a tough one.
All right. Mr. Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Okay.
Mr. Treasurer, we're on to Colerain.
May I interject, Mr. Treasurer, just briefly?
Absolutely.
On the latest one, on Littleton, I think, I obviously we've got to have those audits and we need to back our staff in their need for those audits. But I see a continuing pattern. I don't know if this is, it just seems very consistent that folks, these small towns are having trouble finding auditors to do this work. If their letters are accurate, I have no reason to believe they are not. I just wonder if there's anything that the commission or staff or the state can do to kind of prepare a list of professionals who can assist, or do we do any of that? Do we assist localities on that? Because I would hate for folks to have been trying to comply and been unable to. And if that, I don't know the background and the details of this, but it seems really problematic if small towns like this have enough trouble finding somebody to run for mayor. Sometimes to double up on it and try to find financial services may be difficult. And I want to make sure we're helping them do that.
And I might also add that in discussions that I've had, their price for the audits has skyrocketed, sometimes surprising these smaller cities.
Mr. Burns, in response to your question, LGC staff does maintain a webpage where we list auditors who do audits. We make it very clear, though, we don't recommend any auditors. That would be obviously dangerous territory for us to get into recommending.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
But information and which type of units auditors audit, what areas they serve, what services they provide, those are all listed on our website. Any auditor is welcome to list information. We vet it only to the point to make sure it's, it's real. Other than that, we put that information out there. So we do make that information available, and I would think that potentially the league and the association might help with that kind of work as well. So.
Thank you for answering my question. That's good. I'm glad to hear that.
Great point. Thank you. Are we done with?
We are on to Colerain. The staff's recommendation to withhold from Colerain is based on the fact that they haven't submitted 2 years, but they also did not submit an appeal. We've made extensive efforts to connect with them, let them know they had that opportunity. I did speak with the mayor this morning. I asked him if he'd like to join us today. He could not because, this wasn't the first time the invitation was extended, but I was just trying to do everything I could to make sure these units had an opportunity to appear before you. He had a work conflict and was unable to attend. I asked him to be sure that he was aware of the LGC's authority to withhold a portion of their sales tax distributions. He was. I confirmed that he was choosing not to appeal. He confirmed he was not. He said he thought their audits would be in by now. And he did indicate that the auditor was working on their fiscal year 2022 audit. I did speak with their clerk several times in the last week or so, and she did indicate that the auditor's wrapping up their 22 audit, and they're hoping to get the 23 ready to go shortly thereafter. So again,
no appeal.
Our recommendation is based on the fact that they're 2 years and they did not submit an appeal. They knew they had the opportunity to do so. They did not submit an appeal.
Do we have a motion for the staff's recommendation?
So moved.
Thank you, Secretary Marshall. Second.
Second, John Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Motion second being made. Any further discussion?
I have a question that
Yes,
I hadn't
ma'am.
thought about. These amounts of sales tax that are being withheld, will these towns now get them when they do get caught up?
So under the law, once the audit is submitted and accepted by the LGC, the funds are withheld. We've been working closely. The funds are released. And wanted to thank Secretary Penny's staff. We've been working with Secretary Penny's staff on how to implement that within the requirements of the law. So as these decisions that the commission is making are implemented, we've got a process in place. Yes. And it's when it's the audit submitted, those funds will be released. Yes, ma'am.
Carrot and stick.
Okay.
And all the money is not taken out in 1 month.
Right. Right.
It's a fraction.
Motion second on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
All right, this is the sales tax withholding resolution for the town of Coleraine. Motion Marshall, second Burns. Auditor Holmes?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Butler? Aye. Councilwoman Hoffman?
Aye.
And let's see, I don't think Mr. Philbeck is back yet. Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
Thank you. That motion carries.
Okay. Our next one's Hamby Bridge.
Speed. And just to be clear, sorry, Hemby Bridge is the next one in your packets, but Hemby Bridge did submit their audit report on July 31st, so they're no longer subject to this action.
Speed.
Yes, sir. Speed, we actually do have Ms. Faison on the line with us. Again, Speed has not submitted their 2022 or 2023 audits, and they did not submit an appeal. That is the basis for staff's recommendation. But again, Ms. Faison is available for questions.
Well, let's get a motion, a second on the floor, and then give Ms. Faison an opportunity to say something. Welcome to the LGC board. And do I hear a motion?
I'll make the motion, Trish.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Motion second being made. Okay. Any further discussion? Ms. Faison, can you hear us?
Yes.
Hey, welcome. Did you have anything you wanted to briefly add to the resolution?
I wanted to say that, first of all, we're not in debt. We don't owe any money. We have submitted our last two accountings to our accountants, but they have not submitted the audit. On the last accounting that I did, the information regarding our power bill account, and I'm trying. I can probably get that to him in a day or so. He was also asking for some other things. I can't recall right now what they were. We pay our auditor. Our budget is between the last couple of years between $50,000 and $70,000, and we pay our accountant $3,200. Plus, we pay him to do our quarterlies. I am the finance officer and the clerk. I'm also a lawyer, and when I initially became the finance officer, I was not working because I was ill, but I was able to help them out. Since then, I've gone back to work, so I have to do the town of Speed work in between what I do. In addition, we had no town hall, so I was trying to do the work at home, and it was just not convenient. Just recently, in the past 2 months, we moved into our new town hall that was donated to us by the Rules Club of Speed. And so I have a little more space to work out of. And I've already started working on the accounting for 2024. And I should have that ready in a month or so. So we're struggling. We have only 62 households in the town of Speed, and all the funds that we can get, we actually need, because the Rules Club Hall had to be refurbished for us to go in there. We had to put in a roof, and we took them to put in windows. So we actually need our money to to do work. And we would ask that you consider giving us an opportunity to file a form of appeal, and that you not withhold our sales taxes.
Was that the mayor?
That was the finance officer. We did request that she provide all this information to any other staff or elected officials.
Thank you for that information. Secretary Marshall.
What services does the town actually provide to the people?
What services does the town provide?
I didn't understand her question. I didn't hear her.
What services does the town provide to the 62 people, households in the town?
We provide garbage pickup, lights in the form of the night lights, and we're doing recycling, but the people weren't cooperating very well, so we stopped the recycling. And of course, the water we get comes from the town, come from the county.
So basically, you provide, this is the treasurer, street lights, you contract with your garbage service, and that's basically the services you provide at this point.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. This is the treasurer again, and thank you for joining us. With your population falling in half of the last 50 years, have you thought about just becoming a historical community and not being incorporated?
I will raise that issue to the board tonight. And you said being a what?
Well, this board a few years ago voted to unincorporate East Laurinburg. And just because you're not a city doesn't mean you're not a community.
Right.
And you may already know this, but as popular and as knowledgeable as people are about Currituck County, there are no cities in Currituck County. There are no incorporated cities in Currituck County. So what I'm saying is the possibility of always being just calling yourself Speed, but being unincorporated may be an option that that might fix a lot of your problems.
And what would we call ourselves then?
Speed and unincorporated.
No, you call it something like a historic something.
Historical community.
Yeah.
Speed.
Historical community.
Or Speed unincorporated. Anything with the word speed in it, I love.
You have a post office, believe it or not. And I think that's there because General Hugh Shelton, that's his home. And he was at one of our
chief staff.
Yeah.
He was on the chief of staff on the Clintons. And so but we were under consideration for the post office being taken from us. And it still may be a reality, but it's only open from 2:30 to 4 on Mondays through Fridays, then open on Saturdays.
I got a place. Well, I know enough about rural North Carolina to know that decisions made in Washington, D.C. about post offices and hours of locations and leases and things like that, if you were to consider deincorporating and just becoming the community of Speed, I don't think that would limit your ability to have a post office there. You don't have to be in a city to have a post office.
Okay.
Okay. Anyway, just a suggestion that takes a lot of these issues away from you. So, All right, we have a resolution. Is there any questions? Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay. The resolution for sales tax withholding for the town of Speed. Motion Butler, second Hoffman. Auditor Holmes?
Nay.
That was nay.
Correct.
Thank you. No. Secretary Marshall?
Aye.
Mr. Burns?
I'm going to say nay on the grounds of other good cause.
Treasurer Falwell?
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. 4 yes, 2 no.
Resolution passes. Thank you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay. Next on the agenda is our unit updates.
And again, Mr. Treasurer, I think in the interest of time, members have their packets with the written updates. We'll just highlight the items needing your vote, your consideration and vote for units under LGC control.
So the unit that is requiring a vote, that's a unit that's under our control by the LGC, is Cliffside Sanitary District. We have a resolution that we would like for you to consider that would engage the audit firm to be able to do the 2024 audit for Cliffside Sanitary District. And then we have 6 policies related to American Rescue Plan Act that we would like for you to adopt. These are policies that are required to expend American Rescue Plan Act money related to, you can see the list there. There's conflict of interest, allowable cost and cost principles. But these are the policies that we have adopted for other units that were under our control that did have receive ARPA money. So those are the votes that we would like for you to make today.
So the vote is motion and second for the, this is 7 here.
6 resolutions for the ARPA uniform guidance policies and 1 resolution to engage the audit firm.
The motion is for 6 resolutions for the ARPA policies, staff's recommendation on that, and the 1 to return control.
No. Sorry, Mr. Just a resolution.
The resolution to engage auditing firm for 2024 audit.
And we've done everything the LGC needs to do.
Again, Mr. Butler, if I may, just to be clear, this is just actions, again, sort of the LGC's little hat. You're acting as the governing board for the LGC in these matters. This isn't regarding the return of control. That's a separate discussion. This is just actions that we still feel the commission should take as the governing board for CSD, currently under LGC control, policies that need to be adopted by the governing board for CSD.
Do I hear a motion?
I certainly would make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Motion is second on taking staff's recommendation for the ARPA funds and engaging the audit for Cliffside Sanitary District. Any further discussion?
Question.
Yes, ma'am.
Is any of this discretionary, or is this all just what came down in other regulations that had to be put in here?
Yes, the 6 are required because of the ARPA funds received by Cliffside Sanitary District. Yes, and they're essentially, quite honestly, fairly boilerplate. School of Government has provided templates that we've used, and as Kendra noted, the other units that were under our control at some time, the commission adopted these same policies for those units at that time, those times. So.
Okay. Motion is seconds on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay. To be clear, this is 7 resolutions for the benefit of Cliffside Sanitary District. 1 authorizing us to engage an accounting firm to do the 24 audit, and the 6 policies required to receive ARPA funding. That was Butler and Hoffman. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Marshall.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Thank you. Hoffman, Mr. Philbeck's not back yet, is he? Okay, and Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you.
We're now to resolution returning financial control to Cliffside Sanitary District, CSD. Staff's recommendation is to turn it back over. I'll need a motion, a second, then we'll go into discussion.
I would certainly recommend again we return control to.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Secretary Marshall. Mr. Butler, motion second being made. Any further discussion?
Mr. Treasurer,
Yes, sir.
I just want to note for the record how this just shows what good work the staff does, that we're able to take organizations that are not up to par and help them get back up to par so that we can turn over control to local folks. That's exactly what we're supposed to do. And your staff, our staff in this case, did a remarkably good job. It's been a pleasure to watch this over the last 2 years develop and move towards this goal. And I'm really happy to vote for it.
Thank you. Motion second being made. Thank you for those comments, Mr. Burns. Any further discussion or questions? Hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay. The resolution to return financial control to Cliffside Sanitary District. Butler Marshall, Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Penny.
Happily relinquishing my authority over Cliffside. Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Aye.
Thank you. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Thank you. Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Similar resolution regarding the town of Eureka. Staff's recommendation, the resolution's in front of you. Staff's recommendation is to return control of the town of Eureka. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay. Second?
I would second that.
Thank you. Motion second being made. Any further questions about the town of Eureka? Thank you. We've fulfilled all of our statutory responsibilities and can't be in a situation where we have responsibility without authority to do things. And with that, I have the clerk call the roll.
And note, both of these are effective at the end of the month.
Correct.
Okay. So, resolution returning financial control to the town of Eureka. Motion Marshall, second Butler. Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Penny.
Happily. Aye.
Thank you. Mr. Burns.
Yay.
Yes, sir.
Exclamation point.
I'll put that on. Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Thank you. Philbeck absent. Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries.
Okay. Now, attachment 1, viable utility reserve matters, 3 resolutions. Without objection, we'll do all these at once.
Thank you, Mr. Treasurer. You have Commissioner.
Hang on. Any objection to that? Okay. Hearing none. Clerk. Secretary.
There are 3 resolutions before you, Commission members. The first is designating distressed units. When the Viable Utility Reserve legislation was implemented a few years ago, it required the Commission and the State Water Infrastructure Authority to identify or designate units as distressed. One of the ways a unit could be designated as distressed was if they failed to submit 2 years of audits. Our staff has looked at the units who have not submitted 2 years of audits and were not previously identified as distressed, and we are recommending for designation Aurora, Burgaw, Chalkawinity, Kenley, and Littleton. Again, being designated as distressed means these units will have some requirements under statute with regards to rate studies and asset studies and some training requirements. It also means they could potentially be eligible for some grant funding, depending on the availability and depending on how they on their applications. This resolution also recommends designation of Grimesland and Milton. Those 2 units scored above the threshold that was set for assessing units and determining whether or not they're distressed. So that first resolution is recommending that 7 units in total be designated as distressed, 5 under the what we call the D2 designation for missing 2 years of audits, and 2 under the quote D3 designation for scoring beyond the thresholds. Second resolution you have is to grant 13 viable utility reserve applications. These again are all study grants, generally ranging between about $150,000 and about $400,000. This will allow these towns, once again, to fulfill that requirement they have as a distressed unit to complete these studies, and is obviously the first step to helping them identify their needs and a path forward for addressing their systems. Finally, the last resolution is establishing minimum criteria for asset assessments and rate studies. Again, back to the statute, when it was enacted, requires that the distressed units complete an asset assessment and rate study, quote, as directed and approved by the authority and the commission. So we're bringing this to you today to essentially approve these guidelines. These were developed by the staff of the State Water Infrastructure Authority with input by LGC staff. And we have participated, we have reviewed them, and we do recommend them as being adopted as the minimum guidelines for these studies that need to be conducted. So staff is recommending approval of all 3 of those resolutions.
Okay. Do I hear a motion to take staff's recommendation?
So moved, Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Second?
Marshall, second.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary Marshall. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, the clerk will call the roll.
Okay. The 3 resolutions related to VUR, the viable utility reserve laws, establishing the minimum criteria, designating some distressed units, and approving some viability utility reserve grant applications, Burns and Marshall. So, Auditor Holmes.
Aye.
Thank you. Secretary Penny.
Aye.
Mr. Butler.
Aye.
Councilwoman Hoffman.
Aye.
Okay. Oh, and Mr. Philbeck, did you join in time to hear the discussion?
I was not here for the presentation. I joined at 3:35, so I will not vote on this if that's okay.
Okay, no problem. And Treasurer Falwell.
Aye.
Motion carried.
I'll turn it over to Cindy for a brief review of SEI letters.
Yes, this is very brief. As you members of the LGC and those of you who have a designee or more than one, the periodic statement of economic interest evaluation letters are provided just for your review as reminders to always be assessing your situation, personal, financial, relational, business, for any potential conflicts of interest. And just to note on this group of letters is a combination of members and some of the designees, and I marked 4 that marked a possible potential conflicts of interest, and we pretty much know what those. Councilwoman Hoffman, Ms. Harvey, Secretary Marshall, and Treasurer Falwell all had this be alert to the potential. But we just also this is an encouragement to. No, I said that already, sorry, to review your situation and be on the lookout for conflicts. And just make a note that we presented these to you for purposes of minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Now turn it over to Debbie for any closing items. I have a couple of closing comments before you leave. Go ahead.
Nothing other than September meeting is bumped back essentially a week because of the Labor Day holiday, so that'll be held on September 10th.
September, typically a long agenda?
It gets to be as units are trying to use their prior year audit to get on the agenda before those new audits are due.
Thank you. Before we go around the horn to see if anybody would like to add anything, I want to thank the board for its work and the LGC staff. There's no gold medals here today, but if there were, we'd be giving some out. What was done to implement the law that the General Assembly passed regarding these late audits was Herculean. Staff deserves a round of applause, I think, for how they've tried to segment this. How to be fair and just, and another Latin word that I forgot how to pronounce, so I won't use it today. But I want to thank staff for that. As far as these returning controls, when we fulfill our statutory responsibilities and we have no authority, that's all we can do. Done a lot of good work there. As I left the meeting briefly, I asked Carter and Associates for a copy of what they presented to this LGC board a while ago, and they said, well, those are just handwritten notes. They did not have an analysis that they could give us regarding Cabarrus County. I did not know that. I thought when somebody comes in front of the local government commission and they're reading from a report, the chair said they had a report, and then when I asked them for the report, they said it was just handwritten notes. So the first piece of homework is for us to send a letter to Carter Associates, the chairman of the board, to send in an analysis of exactly what was said to this board today regarding the net present value, the financial advantage of doing it the way they did it. So I'm asking staff to send a letter to Carter Associates as well as the chair of the Cabarrus County Board so that our LGC staff, because those are a lot of numbers all at once, has the benefit of looking at that in our when we are more rested to look at something like that. Lastly, I'd like for somebody to reach out to the nice lady in Speed to talk about how something like how it would look, how it would roll, how it would happen regarding Speed, North Carolina, if they decide to become just an unincorporated community instead of an incorporation. And point out that we've done this before, one time since I've been the treasurer, and I think the other time was a voluntary unincorporation, and that Speed would have the opportunity to voluntarily unincorporate, I believe. That would be an option for them also. So that's my homework from me. Go around the horn. We'll start with Mr. Burns, see if he's got anything to add.
Good.
Okay. Auditor Holmes? Okay. Secretary Penny?
Nothing to add.
Mr. Fieldback?
No, sir.
Okay.
No.
And Councilwoman Hoffman?
Nothing.
Mr. Butler?
No, sir.
Getting y'all out of here early. Secretary Marshall?
Well, I don't want to spoil the party by talking, but I think I want to feel good about the audits coming in because of tax withholding, having been here for many, many years and, just being so frustrated with the voluntary please, please, please type approach to get these in. We did need some enforcement mechanism. It is sad what it has to be, but I think it's a fair approach and a reasonable approach. It's not too draconian, but it could be if they linger on. So I'm glad they're getting their audits in.
Thank you. Well, I think what the board desired was a structure and a process that was fair and just for everybody. So.
Treasurer, I do want to commend you for reaching out to the candidates on both sides and encouraging them to attend meetings where they're going to be on boards and sitting in the chair you are. I don't know if they have a clue what they're getting ready to pick up and do. and I think it'd be most helpful to them.
I came to
We're
the
going to pick up a lot of popcorn.
I came to the December meeting after I first got elected in November, and I got
And when was that?
1997, it was December 96, excuse me, 96. And I also got the public finance book from the local government commission. Try to understand the language, if nothing else.
Right. Well, that history of this board's been invaluable to me, so thank you. My intention is, after the November election, is for the treasurer-elect to sit beside me in these board meetings. I think it's different.
It's admirable.
Huh?
That's admirable.
Well, we need to make room, and I think it's a different perspective sitting out there where Billy's sitting and looking this way versus looking out that way, and so my intention is after the election to get badges and provide office space and let the next treasurer get up to speed as much quickly as possible so they can hit the ground running. I'll say this, Harlan's son, others have told me this story, but Harlan never lost an election. Treasurer Bowles didn't. But he would always go and meet with the chair of the Republican Party of North Carolina. He was not a member of the Republican Party. And say, I want you to find the best possible person to run against me because this job is too important. Anything can happen in a presidential year. He said, I'm going to beat that person. But how much of a public servant he was, and he didn't have the state health plan to deal with back then. But my point of saying that is that that's the standard I'm trying to live up to with Treasurer Bowles. And as Billy knows, the R in Gray stands for radical hospitality, and so we're trying to extend as much hospitality as we can to these two candidates as they are applying for this job to be the next treasurer and have all the information they can stand. So, thank you, Mr. Butler. Bless you. With that, I'll entertain a motion. Oh, you want to say something about Christie just for a moment, if you don't mind?
Oh, no, I'm happy to. The Council of State meeting this morning was the last Council of State meeting for Christie Jones, who had been the Chief of Staff for Roy Cooper while he was Attorney General, and now in the Governor's office. She is leaving to work for a private concern and actually leaving the state. She's going to be working in D.C. And this morning, it also was her birthday, but we did a rousing standing applause for her. She's the person that when you can't get the governor, that she's the one you want to talk to, and she seems always available, or at least leave a message, and she calls back very, very promptly. Very efficient, very smart. Roy's going to miss her. I'm going to miss her. I think all the rest of us in the Council of State are going to miss her.
And I will tell you, the governor, and even when he was the Attorney General, he always backed his Chief of Staff. You'd make a bad mistake to try to go around her.
It's the same true at the Secretary of State's office.
When the governor was giving his remarks today at the Council of State, he sort of went through a litany of all the great things about Christie, but his last comment was, and I think she's just one of the finest people I've ever met in my life. So I believe something to that effect.
Correct, yeah.
So anyway, a lot of folks are retiring, but people like her are the glue that keep the state running. So with that, I'll entertain a motion. You guys can get home before the traffic and the rain. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay. Second. Fails for lack of a second.
Second.
I'll leave it anyway.
Second, Burns.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, clerk will call the roll.
How about all in favor say aye?
Aye.
That's what we do.
Opposed, no. Adjourned. Okay, Billy.